Dayanyayi, third grade, which means welcome, third grade, in the Lakota tongue. And it's because this unit, we are talking all about Native Americans. Now, we're going to start at the beginning today. We're going to start when migration began. And then we're going to keep talking about all the different tribes, the different locations that Native Americans are living in today and have lived in. So I'm really excited about this unit. I think it's going to be so much fun. Again, this is something that I studied in college, so I'm really excited to share this with you guys. So I want you to imagine a time long, long ago. So long ago that we can't say for certain when. In this ancient time, people began to move from one land to another. These prehistoric people were nomadic hunters who traveled in groups. These prehistoric people began to move from the land we call Asia into the land that we call North America. They did not plan to move from one land to another. They were simply following the herds of animals that they hunted for their own survival. It is thought that various groups of people ventured on foot across a vast, cold area between Asia and North America called Burinia, following herds of prehistoric animals. Historians think that the very beginning of this migration of ancient Asian people began during the last major ice age. It was during this ice age that large areas of Earth's water were frozen, which you can see in the picture here. At this time, northern regions of North America were covered in thick sheets of ice and giant, glistening icebergs, which you can also kind of see in this picture. As you heard earlier, because water had turned to ice during the Ice Age, sea levels had dropped, and certain areas of land had become uncovered. Many scientists think Burinia was one of these areas. As these prehistoric people moved across Burinia, they lived and hunted in this icy world. They were followed and hunted great herds of large mammals such as woolly mammoths, mastodons, giant bison or buffalo, saber-toothed cats, and giant ground sloths. Well, these large mammals are known as big game. All of these animals were prey for the people who migrated or moved from Asia to North America. The Burinia migration is a widely held theory among historians, but this is almost certainly not the only way that people arrived in North America. It is also likely that people came to North America in boats, following the coastline in search of land and food, and then stayed because they discovered an abundance of new resources. This migration of people and animals did not happen all at one time. However, they arrived. These are believed to be the very first people to inhabit North America. Eventually, as the climate began to warm and the ice-covered land began to thaw, it became possible to travel even farther into North America. Giant glaciers that had blocked native people's paths melted. People moved south through an area that opened up between two enormous glaciers. Scientists called this path between these glaciers the ice-free corridor. You can see right there. This corridor or passage was cold and wet, but habitable, which means that people could live there. And so, large numbers of native people continued to migrate or move in small groups, just as before. They lived a nomadic life as they followed the herds of animals that they preyed upon. In order to survive in this way, these native people had to be expert hunters. Although we don't know much about this period of human history, archaeologists have discovered a variety of spears, including leaf-shaped spears embedded in mammoth bone, in addition to tools for scraping and carving bone. We can only imagine what life must have been like for these early people as they endeavored to survive in an ice-cold world by hunting creatures such as 9-foot-tall woolly mammoths with nothing more than a spear and stealth. They would have hunted in groups to take down their prey. A woolly mammoth would have provided many pounds of meat, as well as fur, tusks, and bones. And you can kind of see this picture right here. They look like they're using all the parts of the woolly mammoth, and it kind of looks like they're building their weapons and spears with that, which is pretty cool. So a band of hunters and their families would most likely have stayed with the carcass or dead body of the animal until the food supply ran out. In addition to food, the animals they hunted provided the native people with clothes. And again, you can see in this picture what they're wearing, and it looks like you've got a lot of fur because, again, this is really cold. So they used all parts of the animal for food, like I said, different weapons, and even clothing. They had to make sure, and you can kind of see in these back, in the houses that they lived in, these the structures that they used to live in, you can see that they had to line them with animal fur. So none of the animals that they hunted went to waste. They used all parts of it. So, as the Earth's climate changed, it became warmer. The way these early people's lives changed too. Gradually, many prehistoric animals that had been hunted for their meat, fur, and bones disappeared from our world forever. Were they hunted to extinction by people struggling to survive in a changing world? Or did our climate change alter, which means to change, the delicate balance of the food chain to such extent that these mammoths could no longer find food they needed to live? We will never know for certain the answer to these questions. We do know that the saber-toothed tiger and the woolly mammoth no longer wandered this land, where other ancient creatures, such as a buffalo, did survive. And a lot of you guys might actually have seen like woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers if you've ever seen the movie Ice Age with Sid the Sloth and Manny and all those guys. So we do have our movies that do reflect some of these ancient times. And again, that movie was set around this time. So the baby in that movie may have been a baby from one of these nomadic groups. So I think it's pretty cool how we still see history repeated in the movies we watch today. So, as you can see in this picture, this is actually an American buffalo, and we still have these today, but these were roaming around back in the time of the Ice Age, so it's pretty cool that they still survived. So it does appear that some animals were more able to adapt to climate change than others. The buffalo, for example, is thought to have become smaller and swifter over time. And they're using the word swifter to mean fast. So they become smaller and faster over time. Once the ice was gone, new plants and grasses and trees emerged, and various animals adapted to new diets. Native people adapted too. And so eventually, over many years, people moved right across a vast expanse of land to various regions, to wide open grasslands of the Central Plains, to the northeastern and southeastern woodlands, to the swamplands and coastal regions, and to the sun-drenched west coast and dry southwestern deserts. Some people settled in the far north regions and in the Arctic and the subarctic. Some people moved even farther south into what we now call the continent of South America. Eventually, many ancient people chose to no longer live nomadic lives, but instead chose to settle in one place and establish permanent or semi-permanent settlements. They may have decided this because they discovered regions where the food supplies were plentiful in the form of animals to hunt and fish and plants to consume. One thing that is certain is that many native people began to farm. Though they had previously survived by foraging for wild plants in addition to hunting prey, native people began experimenting with planting and harvesting, and they eventually began to grow a variety of crops. Because of this, some people chose to stay in one place and, by their collective efforts, increase their own food supply. And again, you probably watched the video of Mr. Roney growing his own plants, and it's pretty interesting to see how that's done. And you can see in this picture, they have all of this space now. And these structures are going to start becoming more of a permanent thing rather than something they can pack up and move along with. These are something that will be staying on this landscape for a long time. And again, you can see they're starting to cultivate, which means starting to create this new form of farming where they can just stay there and rely on what's around them. Over time, approximately 500 North American native tribes came to inhabit a wide variety of regions across North America. These native people, whose total population peaked or reached its highest number at about 20 million, would live their lives according to their own customs and cultures for thousands of years to come until European culture brought extreme changes to their ways of life. So we'll see you guys tomorrow for part 2. Dianyaye, 3rd grade. Until tomorrow.
Hey,